If you go all the way back to episode number 1 of Driftwood Outdoors, way, way back, it was with Lee Vogel, the founder of the Missouri Hunting Heritage Federation. Fast forward to today, and that organization is in good hands. And we're going to talk to the man leading it as the new executive director. I'm Brandon Butler.
I'm Nathan Shags McLeod.
And I'm Colton Zirkle.
Welcome to the Driftwood Outdoors podcast. So you guys are going to make fun of me anymore after the first week and the totally terrible webcam video I was using. I'm an HD, baby!
Yeah, you're not holding your microphone in your hands either.
No, I spent all this money for this fancy webcam that was supposed to have a built-in microphone, so we're going to check the audio on that recording this time around.
Yeah,
But
you sound pretty good.
it cracked me up because I realized we've been doing this is episode 277, I think. And we've always started it with kind of stories to like welcome the guest and easily ease into conversation. And I was listening to the Kelsey Bros podcast, The New Heights, and they always do the new notes. I was like, why didn't we have anything clever to like introduce our stories at the beginning of the episode? So I feel like we need to spend some time and try to come up with something on that eventually.
Well, we're clearly slow to adopt.
This is our second video. I'm excited to see how people appreciate our new platform here, being on all the reels and on the tubes.
Well, that's why I dressed up. I feel like a lot of people are gonna be like, "Man, them dudes sound a lot better than they look." We're probably we're gonna go downhill now that they can see us.
We're gonna get into why you're all dressed up too. That's one of my stories as well. But I even told Savannah beforehand, I was like, great, something else to be worried about now. Before it was just like, don't say anything stupid. Now I'm over here checking the mirror, making sure there's nothing in my teeth, brushing my teeth, gotta make sure there's nothing in the background and all that. But I am happy to announce number one story on the board is it's official. We will be at Big Rock Candy Mountain Friday, February 28th. The night before opening day, recording a podcast in the bar. Already got Mark Van Patten on board. He's going to join us to give us the history of trout in Missouri, give you tips on how to catch your limit the next morning at Montauk. So be sure to book your stay now at Big Rock Candy Mountain. I know Roger's got a band on Saturday. He's got festivities going all weekend long. It's their opening weekend. It's when they open their gates and everyone comes back in. So I'm really excited for Driftwood Outdoors to be a part of Big Rock Candy Mountain and the opening day of trout season in Missouri.
Yeah, it's such a celebration to get down there, and I'm glad we're making a tradition. Will this be 4 years in a row that we've been to Montauk? At least
I believe
3.
so. Yeah, I think this will be our 4th for all of us going down there. So keep that in mind too, Brandon, and anyone listening, if there's somebody that you'd want us to also interview there, that he sent me some suggestions on because we know Uncle Keith has got ticket number 6, which I thought was pretty impressive of always being the 6th ticket sold. But he sent me one saying there's a couple of guys that always come up there that will get number 4, and this will be his 41st opening day. Johnny gets 5, and I'm thinking he's almost to 50 opening days. And these two fellers are storytellers. So I got their contact info. I might reach out to them and have them jump on the podcast with us too.
So does that mean if Uncle Keith outlives 5 other people, he'll get to number 1?
I think that's how it works. He's been
like
working really
5
hard.
away from the throne.
Maybe we shouldn't invite him because he might try to sluice one of them in the parking lot so he can move up that number.
If all 5 of them die in the same year, something's up.
So the other story I was going to bring up to kick this off, Brandon, because I know you always talk about if you could time travel, the era that you would want to live in is the wild, wild west, the old country, the trapping days, the woodsman. I would
want to be the very, very first white man to ever set foot in Montana.
So I asked this, have you seen Netflix's new limited series, American Primeval?
No.
It's a limited series. It's like 7-8 episodes. And it's from like 1857, where it starts in Missouri, St. Joe, Missouri. That's the end of the railroad tracks heading out west. That's as far as she could go. It's a woman from the big city with her son trying to reach his dad out in the west. And it was during the Latter-day Saints being kicked out of Missouri. And I had to look it up. I was like, is this based on true events, and it was wild, talking about the Mormon militia. And at the time, in the mid 1800s, the Missouri governor had sent out, like, it was in the news that they wanted to exterminate all Mormons from the state. So they were running away from everything to head out west, ended up in Utah. But this Mormon militia then had it was called, I'm spitting and sputtering because it's so much history, but it was the Mountain Meadows Massacre, where it was a series of attacks on wagon trails of people moving out west, that it was done by the Mormon militia, and they blamed it on the Native Americans. They were using arrows and they were scalping. They were trying to make it look like it was the Native Americans that were assaulting all these people. But it made me think of you, because in this series, I mean, everything was trying to kill you. I mean, your fellow man, hunters, trappers, the animals, the Native Americans, because, they weren't happy with any of us being there. You had the Mormons, and it made me laugh going, I am so glad that I'm living in 2025. I have no interest in trying to be some type of mountain man out there.
Well, everything's trying to kill you today, man. They're just doing it in different ways. It's the stuff in your food, it's the taxes. Man, I've got a story about taxes today. I know I've tipped over the top of the mountain. I'm on my way down because I hate taxes more than anything at this point. Like, so I would still take it. I would take fronting the essentials of life, as Thoreau said. I would want to have like a fair trial against what's trying to kill me, instead of the world we live in today, where even the air and the water and the soil is trying to kill you. So give me the grizzly bears.
Colton, I want your opinion on this too. But first, I should put a disclaimer. I should have at the very beginning. It is ultra violent. Like, it is wildly, wildly violent. So if you got a squeamish stomach, or you don't enjoy a good head bash or scalping that they show.
What's it called again?
American Primeval.
I've been lobbying my household to cancel Netflix. It's gone up to $23 a month. I just don't see the need. Another reason I know I've gotten old is all I watch is YouTube. I go down the rabbit holes, man. Like, I paid the $2.99 to not have to do commercials on YouTube anymore, or whatever it costs. It's the best thing I've ever spent money on. Everything else can go.
Colton, what do you think? Because you're a trapper. When you want to give it a shot?
Well, I mean, certainly I find romance in like Lewis and Clark when they went out, and white people have been out there for a while, but everything was still pristine. But I'm thinking more like the Teddy Roosevelt era. If I could have brushed shoulders with him at some point, and things were tame-ish at that point, so there would be some modern, comfort and things. But, I've got a friend here where I live that built a cabin on his own property out of locally sourced logs and stone. And, underneath it, he's hidden central air, plumbing, and electricity. And it's like, that sounds pretty comfy.
Well, because there's a couple of scenes where they're in the mountain range that looks absolutely miserable. Like, not for me.
I think out of everything you just named, Colton, it's the air conditioning. So even down at the cabin, it got cold down there. I mean, for people who don't think it gets cold down in the Ozarks, like it gets cold. But I had no heat other than the wood stove, and it was a 24 by 60 footprint, and the wood stove would make the loft too hot. It wouldn't heat up the bedrooms. We had to have little electric heaters plugged in there. So I could live without that part of the HVAC. And as far as water, we went down and got water from the creek and brought it up and used a transfer pump and put it into a bigger tank inside and used that for showers and toilets and everything, and then cooked with brought in water. So I could live without that too. But I was up Saturday with my friends, the Amish, lobbying to become part of their community. And I took another load of cedar up there, and they were out on the ice. And I got to call Eric Call from our sponsor, Superior Insulation, because they were out on the ice cutting chunks of ice with a chainsaw, like a rudimentary chainsaw, I will say. They had two horses that were the size of dinosaurs. I don't know how they've genetically bred horses to be taller than that monster truck Bigfoot. Like, I swear they could just it could step over that monster truck. These horses were so big. And then they had like a hay elevator run down to the pond and up to the trailer that had metal tires on it, so they'll never go flat, being pulled by those horses. And they had one trailer load of ice. It took them maybe a half a day to cut that off the pond. Each piece of ice was maybe a 16-inch by 16-inch square, 4 inches thick. And I bet they had, I don't know, 50 to 75 of them. And those are going into the ice house and will last for the rest of the year. They have to do that once a year. And they have an ice house. So I'm sitting there just picking this dude's brain. Like, what is it made out of? It's made out of insulation from dock floats, like that you would have in your pond. And then they spray foam insulation around those dock floats to seal them up. And then they have a chamber that they put these blocks of ice in, and that's it. So while I go home and pay my electric bill, $25 a month just to be connected to the grid. Like, we don't even give you anything for that. For the privilege of giving us money, we're going to charge you money. And Amish Andy number 2 doesn't have to do that. He just has to chop ice once a year. So
I might join you.
So is that the refrigerator?
it's like an outdoor ice house with walls that are like 18 inches thick. And it's like the Amish invented the Yeti cooler long before the Yeti people did. Like, theirs are just the size of a garage. So pretty amazing. And I ordered 2 Adirondack chairs, and I got a bunch. I'm gonna, out of my own cedar I took up there, I'm having them build me a couple chairs for my front porch, and then getting a bunch more of the cedar milled, which I'll put on the wall, maybe in my new podcast studio spot.
They're going to invite you to be part of the clan here with as much money as you spend with them and have them keeping busy.
I take Lauren with me, so all the girls quit smiling at me when she's around.
Well, the third story I had was you showboating and putting a little look at me Louie today and changing the time of the podcast, just a casual text of, oh, I forgot I'm invited to the governor's ball. Can we record a little bit earlier? Like, oh yeah, is that something you just forget?
Yeah, man, I did. I wasn't lying to you when I told you I figure my schedule's out the morning of usually anymore. There's so many things that are put on my calendar that I get up about 6 o'clock and do a scan of what the day brings. And yeah, I really wanted to go to everything. I've never been more excited about an elected official taking office. I am absolutely a Mike Kehoe fan as he becomes our governor. I did a project on him in my MBA program at the University of Missouri, went down and interviewed him, wrote a report about him, actually did kind of a podcast, recorded audio, just part of the report that I thought I knew how to do because we do a podcast and most of my classmates didn't. And just listening to his story, I mean, that's impressive. He didn't have a father around when he was a kid, grew up pretty poor. And it just reminds me of myself. Like, he got a job working when most of the other kids were at the beach playing. And he worked all through his youth, washing cars, becomes the guy that owns the car lot, sells it, goes into politics, is a great public servant, but remains humble because he's been through a business career. He's had all the frustrations that we've had of trying to make money and survive in corporate America before becoming a politician. So I truly think he has the best of Missouri at heart. Some of the stories that he told about saving this ambulance company over in Lynn because his job was to go close the factory, but he couldn't look these people in the face and tell them that they were going to all lose their jobs. So he created a plan for them to save their jobs, and then he ended up buying the factory. And this was in, a young age. So he's always been ambitious. He's a great family man. I'm just very excited. So I'm honored to go tonight and be there, which is exciting too, because I think we said it on the last podcast. The first podcast I ever did, might as well start big, was with the governor of Missouri in his office when it was Jay Nixon. And then we went through Eric Greitens, then Governor Parsons, and now Governor Kehoe. So it's been pretty neat.
Well, you have to tell him I said hello since we got a fun history of me making an ass out of myself in front of him.
I got to tell another story too. Colton, you'll appreciate this, and Shags, you were part of it and right there. But I'm working with a lobbying team now on retrieving freedom. And some of the people that I'm working with, I worked with at CFM and then brought them to Raceline and now and I'm still continuing to work with them on trying to get some funding for the mental health aspects of what our service dogs do. And it was really funny because one of the people we'd never met before, and I asked, like, what do each of you do? And she very much like mansplained to me what a lobbyist is. And so I let her go through the whole thing. And then at the end, I was like, well, that's great. Thank you. I too wore that badge for 5 years. I'm familiar with it. And I said, I didn't really do anything major, but I had a few battles but they were never over anything that you would think, it was like captive deer, and their eyes just lit up. Like these stories, like we maybe even take it for granted because we were so involved with it. This woman's been in Jeff City for 30 years as a lobbyist, and she says that's the craziest period of time that she can remember. It's kind of like this little deal, this little captive deer deal is what everything broke itself against. Like it was the straw that broke the camel's back and fractured relationships. And she told the story of when like me and Andy Blunt had to go into the speaker's office to get yelled at, and Chuck Basie was like sitting in the corner and like the whole story. And like people know these stories. And I said, you know what? That's funny, but there's a good quote that I've always adhered to, and that is, you can judge a man's character by the enemies that he keeps. And if you look at the friends that we had in that fight, Mike Kehoe, who will become governor today, or became governor today, Eric Schmidt, who's now United States Senator Eric Schmidt, Eric Burleson, who's now U.S. Congressman Eric Burleson. So I would like to think our people were on the right side of that. And I said a couple of the leaders of the other side are back in their hollers, married to their cousins. So we did well.
Oh man, I'd have to agree with you on that. Well, like I said, be sure to tell the governor, Mr. Kehoe, that Shags spit and sputtered all over himself just to say hi again.
Well, he wants to be on the podcast. Last time we talked, it was during the campaign, and at that point we just said there's probably no time to get it scheduled. So I'll let you get settled into that new house, and maybe you have me and Shags over for dinner.
Yeah, there we go. I love it.
We'll get him on. Like, can't wait to hear how he feels now that it's all settled in. So I said, imagine waking up today. Like you wake up today and it's like, just a kid from St. Louis, and you're going to be governor by the end of the day. Walk down those steps in front of the Capitol. Like, no matter what political party you're part of or anything like that, respect the office. I've always tried to do that. So pretty neat. Oh, I do have one more story. A good story. A good
Go
story.
for it. Go for it.
So if you go back a couple of podcasts, we had the Stop the Steal with Aaron Kendall from the National Wildlife Federation about Utah trying to grab up some of our public lands. Well, an immediate release just hit the wires, and it says that the Supreme Court rejects Utah's land grab lawsuit, a victory for public landowners. This came out of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Said today, the U.S. Supreme Court announced their decision to reject hearing a lawsuit filed by the state of Utah late last summer that threatened the very foundation of America's public lands legacy. Patrick Berry, the new CEO of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, said today's rejection of Utah's attempted land grab reaffirms what we've long known. These lands belong to all Americans and were never Utah's to take. Not only did this case threaten to seize 18.5 million acres of federal land from public ownership, but it set in motion the potential to dismantle America's public land system enjoyed by millions of hunters, anglers, and outdoor enthusiasts. If successful, Utah's lawsuit could have endangered the very existence of federal public lands in every other corner of the country, undermining access and opportunities enjoyed by millions of Americans. So, hey, that Driftwood Outdoors podcast must have made it up to Washington, D.C. And
They listened.
yeah, so Justice Roberts, thank you. Appreciate you listening into the podcast and letting it influence your vote.
That was a slippery slope. That could have
Yeah.
gotten real ugly real fast if that would have went the other way.
Well, I gotta say I'm a little surprised. I'm a
Yeah, we
little
were very
surprised.
pessimistic on
Oh,
that
yeah.
on that podcast. I just
Yeah.
figured, oh, it's gonna happen. It's all gone.
You know, the older I get, the more I come to realize that, you know, the majority typically rules. The majority typically rules. And as much as we care about public lands, you know, if you go out into the streets of any city in the nation, I don't care if it's Chicago or Phoenix or Indianapolis or St. Louis, and just start surveying people to name the 50 most important things in their life, I don't know if public lands are going to come up, you know. So it's a minority of us that love and appreciate them that much, but at least the vision and the foresight is still there, that it's an incredible resource for us to have. And as of today, it's still intact.
Amen. All right, Colton. How about you just take over? Well, hey, first, great seeing you again, and congratulations. I know we talked on the phone a little bit last week, but being a new father, first time father, so Papa Bear in the house. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me on. It's good to be here. Good to hear the news about the Utah public land case. I've been following that as well. But yeah, so I am the executive director of the Missouri Hunting Heritage Federation. And the short of that is we take kids hunting. But a little bit longer is we introduce families to the outdoors through hunting and the shooting sports. So the organization's been around since about 2007, when a group of hunter ed instructors saw that kids were graduating out of their hunter education courses and never getting to go hunting. So they started this organization to give kids their first hunt opportunity. And then, just as scary as that is if they go once and never get to go again. So we partner with a lot of other organizations like, Quail Forever, Ducks Unlimited, National Wild Turkey Federation, to make sure that, we pass the baton and that those families get, additional opportunities to go. So, we focus mostly on people who wouldn't have the opportunity outside of MHHF to get their first experience. But we don't turn away folks who, because lots of families are like deer hunters, but they've never been waterfowl hunting. So we allow those families to come to our waterfowl clinics and recommend it. So we do clinics. They're free. They're a weekend long. They're mostly for youth ages 11 to 15. Because at 16, they can do the entire hunter education portion online. So, but a lot of our clinics, as long as they're not a youth weekend, they usually go up to age 19. So parents go with the kid through the whole clinic, starting Saturday morning, going through Missouri's hunter education certification. Saturday afternoon, we do shooting instruction. And then Sunday morning, we take them out on a hunt with an experienced mentor. So it's my elevator speed.
That's the coolest. We'll show you how to shoot a gun. Like during the whole process, they actually get to go on a hunt. And I think that's just so neat.
Right. And I mean, like hunting for any of us, it's not a guaranteed thing that they will take an animal. But even if, we don't harvest during the clinic, we try to get someone to provide some type of a wild game portion of our meal on Sunday after the hunt, where they kind of come back and share their experiences. It's kind of like a mini deer camp like we are used to, but it allows kids to kind of share that social side of hunting as well.
Now, I know you've been with them for a while, because we've known each other for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when you were just part of the CLC and with CFM and everything. But how long have you been with the new organization?
I think it's going on 3 years now. 25.
Man, time flies.
I said new, and I didn't mean that I didn't mean new as in recently. I meant new as in we had Lee Vogel on,
Right.
and now we've got Colton on.
Yes.
So it's like
Yes.
new in that sense.
Right.
I would have never guessed 3 years though. That's some time just goes by so fast.
So fast.
Oh man.
So how do it's got to be partnerships. Like, how do you find are you doing public lands? You doing private lands? How are you finding these places for people to go out and hunt for the first time?
Yeah. So most of the time it is private land, just because it's a little more controlled situation than a public land hunting. I mean, we occasionally do.
More than a little.
Yeah, well, I know I've heard you guys stories about public land hunting, but yeah, it just a little more controlled. We should know who's on the property at all times, right? But we do work with partners. Like we work with like a dog training kennel and kind of a kennel and a wild game or game preserve, where it's put and take upland birds, a bear's den, and I think that's in Peculiar or Pleasant Hill in Cass County. And that's a great experience because we can guarantee the kids are going to see something and get a shot opportunity. And they get to watch the dogs work. So, it's not a natural hunt, per se, but it is reinforcing all of the safety. And, we say we teach the best and safest way we know how. So we also work with Duckhorn Lodge in Urich, who's, CFM affiliate, and they're wonderful. As long as we get on their calendar, they allow us to come out and basically do whatever type of hunt we agree on their property. And then this year, for the first time in, I think, 83, 84 years, we hosted the first hunt at Merrimack Spring Park, which is a privately owned, but works with the conservation department as a trout park. So yeah, we work a lot with partners and private landowners.
What did you hunt down there? Because I saw it and I meant to make it down there, and just scheduling, how that goes. So was it a deer hunt that you guys did down there? What was it?
We did a crossbow youth deer hunt. So, pretty controlled for that foundation to take their first steps into allowing, a new program on their property.
Were there any giant bucks taken? Because I've seen some huge deer down there while I'm fishing.
There are huge deer. The game cameras that we put out had huge deer. We just harvested one doe, and it was actually a young man who had participated in the governor's deer hunt a couple months earlier. And everybody saw deer and turkey, but they were a little bit out of crossbow range. So, maybe in the future there would be increased opportunities, but for this first one, we just did a soft intro with crossbow. So
is that going to be something that you get to do every single year?
We're hoping so. So they're, like I said, they're an independent foundation. They're actually based in New York City. So, I'm sure Wes Swee, the park director, will take the report back to the board and see if they're interested in doing it again. So
that's exciting.
It was very exciting. It was a lot of fun. It was cool to be out there. It's a beautiful park.
Shags, have you ever taken part in one of these events?
No, I have not.
I've been fortunate to do it. It's really fun. I got to guide a duck hunter, a young man, and his dad came along. The dad was so thankful. He's just never had any experience hunting. He's a really good dad, cool guy, and he was like, man, this is something me and my kid can go do. And it's always fun to watch people kind of come to hunting and then realize, like, all right, there is a lot that goes into it, but it's manageable. It's doable. I can get a shotgun for my teenage son and we can go duck hunting. Like, this is not beyond the realm of possible. So it's really neat to watch the light bulb go off.
Well, and it's neat that you include the parents too, because I have heard stories of, like, I would love to take them, but I don't know anything about it. And then not only are you getting a young man or girl involved, you're also getting the parent who could fall in love with the sport like we all have too.
Right. And I mean, of course, at 11 years old, it takes the parent being invested. I didn't grow up in a hunting family. My dad did some target shooting or competitive shooting, and so did I as a kid. But then, I got interested in hunting and conservation, and, he made sure I got a mentor as well, which was his cousin who now mentors with MHHF too. So, it's, it's great, especially like I said, if you are,
Oh. I think we lost him.
There's going to be technical difficulties.
He'll have to.
He's back.
Is he back?
yeah, sorry
back.
guys.
Well, that's all right,
Don't
man.
know what happened there. Anyway, so it's just a great way for families to take their first steps in, or like I said, if they were experienced already in one form of hunting, but not another, we take them through all the steps to where they feel like they've gotten a good introduction.
Yeah, that's really cool.
What's the future look like for the organization, Colton?
Yeah.
Like, you have plans to do anything different than the status quo?
Yeah. So we're growing statewide. That's kind of why they hired me as executive director, is to, utilize our conservation network and find other groups who are interested in getting families outdoors. And so we're kind of at the moment working eastward from Kansas City towards St. Louis, and going north and south from I-70 at the same time. So, we're interested in bringing on partners in any part of the state. We provide, I've got equipment trailers in 2 different places that are full of everything we would need to put on a clinic. We provide training to the mentors. I usually go down to places that are starting their first clinics to kind of kick them off and get them up off the ground and train and make sure there's somebody who knows kind of our model and how we do things. And Brandon, I'm sure you remember our clinic manual. It's a fairly thick book, but it's really good roadmap to introduce people to hunting and shooting. And yeah, we're just excited to grow, and we are also adding other types of events too. So last year we got some feedbacks from some major grantors that they wanted us to expand, have more adult events and kind of branch out a little bit. So we actually partnered with Wild Harness this year to do a mom and me squirrel hunt. And it's actually sponsored by the Risberg family through the Conservation Federation. So we're grateful for that. But that one is focused on the adult woman and a young child to give them both an introduction to squirrel hunting. So the ladies with Wilderness are going to lead that clinic. And, that's one way we're branching out, as well as we've partnered on the governor's deer hunt to work with not only youth, but adults. And we're also adding a couple more like fundraising events. We're going to have a clay shoot down at Lake of the Ozarks this spring at the Missouri Trap Shooters Association. So got a lot going on.
Do you have a date for that?
I do. Yeah. I'll get you that before we're done with the podcast. I don't remember.
Love to.
Yeah.
Put it on my calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be great.
We enjoy a good shooting sport.
Man, that's right. We'd love to have you guys on.
Have you guys, clearly hunting is in the name of the organization, and hunting definitely needs all the attention it can get, but have you guys branched into doing any fishing events, or are you sticking strictly with hunting?
Well, at the moment, we are branching out just a little. Back when they used to require folks to take a snaring course when they were trapping, you had to get certified to use a cable restraint in Missouri. They did do trapping clinics, but since then that kind of faded out. But there's a lot of renewed interest in Missouri in trapping. And as someone who's a late onset trapper, an adult onset trapper, I have found that it's one of the most accessible, or I can get access so easily for trapping to go onto someone's private property. And if I start on one property, most of the neighbors would like to have me trap on their property as well. So We're going to host a water trapping clinic on February 22nd and 23rd in Sweet Springs. So that one is free. It's our first trapping clinic in 10 years. And that one's actually open to all ages. It's not just a kid-only focus. So, and they can find information for that on our website. So
You got to enjoy that, being the trapper that you are. Have you got to be able to get out at all, being the new dad and having a 10-month-old?
no. Short answer, no. You know, for mom,
You don't have just one of like the little front baby holders and you're just out there setting traps?
well, as a water trapper, and, you know, I'm a little afraid of dropping in the water with the baby tied to me. I think mama would let us go again if we did that. I don't think the baby would mind so much, but mama sure would. So,
Just remind
Yeah,
her of the
then-
story of Moses and float your baby down the river in a little
Right.
basket.
he
and
was fine.
take him along with you.
Yeah.
Be like
Mhm.
biblical.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did people do for generations before, you know, we had this air conditioning, Brandon?
That's right. It's the only thing
Exactly.
that's keeping me from being Amish at this point is air conditioning.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yep. May 31st,
So do you have
Shags, for the
made?
May 31st at the Missouri Trap Shooters Association.
I'm gonna put that in the calendar, and then we'll give you a couple of plugs on the podcast too, leading up to it. Where can people go? Are you signing people up already? Is it up on your website? Where can people go?
They can email me. The event is up on our website, and I think my email address is listed there. We're not taking formal registrations yet, but that will be up
Okay.
pretty soon. I'm actually got a planning meeting on Wednesday for that. So
You just let me know when it's go time, and we'll start talking about it and give you a couple of plugs on the podcast as well. See if we can get that thing sold out for you.
oh, that would be wonderful.
Excuse me, since the fundraising event.
Yes, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, we'll have, you know, I don't know yet if it'll be a silent or a live auction, but we'll have prizes and things, and it'll be sporting clays, and they actually have a new sporting clays range down there at Missouri Trap Shooters. So it'll be a good time.
So do you have any like fun stories of a first time hunter, a young man or lady that just got blown away by an experience? We always love hearing those first time stories.
Yes. So this young man, he came to a hunt where we were going to use firearms, and he was very averse to, you know, the noise and all that. I think his dad and he had shot some before, and he was a small framed kid. And I think that really scared him away from all of it, hunting, shooting, any of it. So we actually swapped him out at that clinic for a crossbow. And like, you know, the first shot the young man took, he just lit up. You know, it's like, well, goodness, there's nothing scary about a crossbow. You know, there's a whack, there's barely any kick. And, you know, it's perfectly lethal and legal to use, even during firearm season for deer. And that was at a partner event, and he did not harvest a deer at that clinic. So we invited him back to our clinic, and he got his hunter education, and we got ready to go out for the shooting portion. And his dad brought out a brand new, you know, one of those fancy crank crossbows that, you know, you don't have to pull the string back. It just winds up and cocks itself. And, you know, the dad was not a hunter either, but since his son was so interested, he's jumping in. You know, they both had pretty nice camo on when they arrived too. And he was actually the young man who harvested that first deer at Merrimack Springs in over 80 years. So, and it was first thing in the morning, 6:15, you know, shooting light had been on for like less than 15 minutes. And I get a text, deer down, you know, and he had put a great shot on. And, you know, I just remember the dad was so excited because it was a first for their whole family. You know, none of them had had any experience. And we actually did a breakdown demonstration with the National Deer Association with Shane Motzenbacher. And it was just so cool to watch the whole process and to watch them experience it. And so, we gave them everything they need to know to take the deer home and either take it to a processor or break it down themselves and eat it. And I just remember, mom was excited, dad was excited. And by the time he was leaving that clinic, I was watching his phone and he was looking at hunting properties. So it's like, goodness, I mean, my dad jumped in with both feet, right? And helped me get all the intro, but like, we didn't buy a hunting property yet, so yeah, it was really cool to watch it it exploded for the two of them, from something that neither one of them had any experience in to this is probably something both of them are going to do now forever. And I hope they will continue on the tradition of taking other people. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And, Shags, lots of times it's a kid's first time shooting a gun, and we almost always do like a trap shoot. We have clay throwers out there, usually just in a field, and they're shooting targets. And just about every kid gets to break a clay at our clinics. And sometimes, they go from, 0 to 60 and they're just busting them left and right. And then we put them on some ducks or geese or chuckers and they, get to shoot those as well. And either way, whether they take their first animal or break their first clay, you get to watch that in their faces. You get to watch them light up and they realize I can do this. That's one of the things that hunting offers. And it's so great. It's approachable for pretty much everyone to be able to go out and take their first steps into this thing. But at the same time, it's a little scary if you've never done any of it before. To just walk out there on your own is intimidating. But we try to remove a lot of those barriers and make it a lot more comfortable for people.
Do you find that you get a similar amount of interest from moms wanting to take children out hunting, or is it still pretty dad dominated?
Well, it's fairly split. I would say it's about 2/3 men, maybe, but it's not always dad. Sometimes it's an uncle, sometimes it's grandpa bringing the kids. But there are lots of moms who sometimes it's just the dad's really busy at work and he can't come, or they're split and, dad's taking kids to sports and mom's bringing a kid hunting. But there are plenty of women who, they don't necessarily have someone in their life to take their kid, and we give them that first opportunity. And then there's plenty of them where the mom, is just in there just as much as the kid. And we've had some moms who are better shooters than just about anybody at our clinics, because we let the parents can get their hunter education and do the shooting portion, and they go on the hunt. They just don't pull the trigger on the hunt. The kid is the focus of the hunt itself, but they get to be involved in every aspect of the clinic.
Is there a way that people are finding you guys more so than others? Is there a way that we can encourage people to reach out?
Yeah, right now Facebook has been the major way people are finding us. We've done some advertising on Facebook and we're finding a lot of new folks through that way. Actually, most of our clinic participants are brand new and don't necessarily know anyone in the organization. But Facebook is a good place to find us. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn. We're at Mo Hunting Fed on social media. So pretty easy to find there. And then our website is where you'll actually find our clinics and things and our events listed. And that is MHHF.us. That's the website.
We'll put all that in the show notes too.
Great.
What about any sponsors that deserve a little plug for the help they're giving you?
Well, our clinic sponsors have been a huge help this year. And lately, Kansas City Safari Club, the Kansas City chapter of Safari Club International they've really increased their support this year with us. And we are very appreciative. They always sponsor our clay shoot in the Kansas City area at Powder Creek. And that one will be the last Saturday of September this year at Powder Creek Shooting Park in Lenexa. And then they've also come on and started mentoring with us, and they've sponsored a couple clinics. And we're very grateful for their growth with us. And then, of course, the Department of Conservation is a big partner with us. They do grant us a little bit every year, and that's very helpful. And we work with their conservation educators and conservation agents at just about every clinic. So we think it's good for kids and families to be introduced to their conservation agent, in a positive way, so they know how to interact with the law enforcement before they would meet them, in a potentially negative situation, or just so that they have a positive relationship with those folks. So those are just a few. The Conservation Heritage Foundation, Shags, they're a big help with us, and also the NRA Foundation. So big thank you to all those people. And Bass Pro Shops Outdoor Fund, Bass Pro and Cabela's Outdoor Fund, certainly a big help. So Roundup for conservation.
And what are ways that people can support? Clearly, any financial contributions are greatly appreciated, but is there a way that people can get involved as volunteers? Can a company maybe donate product that you need?
Yes.
How else can people help?
Yes. So I look at us as there's something for everyone. We always like to have our clinics completely full, because that makes the best use of all of our mentors' time, our sponsors' dollars. And it's just a good program. And, we want to make sure that people know about us. So sharing our social media posts, all those kinds of things don't cost any money, but they're a huge help. Follow, share all of our stuff on social media, but also we have plenty of room to volunteer at our clinics. We need help with photography, short videos and things that we can use for social media. We have places for people who are interested on the food side. We provide a camp meal. And it's great to have a wild game aspect of those meals. We prefer it that way. So, and of course, hunt mentors, trapping mentors, landowners. If you wouldn't mind having us out, we're insured. I can go over that with any potential landowners, and sponsors and donors. Couldn't do it without them. As a nonprofit, we rely on all sponsorships, donations, and grants. So those are always a huge help. And if anyone's interested, I can talk through what kind of benefits we might provide to sponsors and things too. So, and that's statewide, border to border. We'd be glad to have a clinic anywhere in the state. So, yeah, it'd be great.
All right, now that we're through with the niceties, can we talk about taxes? Before we talk about taxes, I do have a trapping question.
All right.
So this is, I've been a burr under my saddle for a couple of years now, and I don't even go trapping. I think it's cool, and I got to go with John Burke, and I've told the story before, but I know that there was some talk of fixing it, and I want to know if anything has changed. Right now, I think the silliest rule, maybe outside of telling people they have to wear a certain number of square inches of orange, that I've ever heard of in the outdoors, is the fact that beaver trapping is open while otter trapping is closed. You can trap the water where the otters live. You can accidentally catch an otter and not be in trouble. But if you do catch one, you have to just kick it in the ditch and leave it there. Like you can't keep it. So it's like you can go out and do everything legally, but if you accidentally catch the animal who came into your trap, you can't keep it.
Okay, I'm gonna take.
Why they don't just allow? I know that there's issues with like depredation and special permits to get those darn beavers from chewing everybody's trees down, but that rule just makes no sense to me. I mean, you can't even, I don't believe you can even like call and get a permit to keep the otter if you accidentally catch one.
So we'll start there. I have spoken to several conservation agents, and I don't think there's a standard with how they respond to that issue. I don't think they, there's nothing dictated to them from headquarters on how they should deal with that. And, I'm stepping back. I'm just a citizen. I've dealt with this issue. And the conservation agent came to CFM and confiscated it from me and took it and put it into the freezer at Runge Nature Center, and I don't know that anything happened after that to the otter, but I have the issue with it because to me it's wanton waste. And as John Burke would
Totally
say,
is.
a 330 doesn't have a round tail, flat tail setting. If it's legal for me to trap beavers, I would prefer to keep my bycatch as opposed to throwing it up on the bank. So
Absolutely.
I know the Missouri Trappers Association. I believe that they share with the Department of Conservation every year. Memo. They go to hearings and things with the Regulations Committee to get that changed. It is not yet changed. I go on to MDC's website where they allow you to comment on current regulations. And every year I put a comment in there to get that changed. To me, the easier solution would just be to allow water trapping until the end of March, right? Because that's when beaver season closes. I know John in particular can't get onto a lot of his properties until, Thursday of this week after deer season ends on January 15th. That's when he gets in and really does his beaver trapping and water trapping and all that sort of thing. So,
Right. People don't want their properties, messed up for deer hunting by having people out there trapping, but they want help with getting these critters under control.
right. Yep. So, yeah, it's one of those things. I think in some ways it's a relic of the past. And the answer that's been given to me was, when they were reintroducing otter and things, and when there weren't very many, they didn't want to take pregnant otters. They didn't want to trap pregnant otters. But beavers are pregnant that time of year. Certainly, one would think after the rut in November, deer are pregnant, and we allow, hunting until January 15th. And as a hunter, you can make your own decisions on those types of things. But really, when the beaver fur is prime is when we need to be out trapping, and same with the otter fur. And it does stay prime through March. So, yeah, it's still an ongoing discussion.
All right.
We
Now
fixed
for
it.
taxes. So if you don't happen to live in the state of Missouri, you probably have no idea about the absurdity of our personal property taxes here. If you bought a car and paid it off in 1978 and it's still in your garage, every year you have to send the government money to own that truck or car.
Oh, we don't own anything in the state. We rent
Nothing.
it from
You
them.
can't
Yeah.
own anything
Yeah.
in this state.
Yeah, it's
You have to.
it's-
Yeah. So people who are like, wait, what? Like, if you live in Indiana right now, you're going, what? Yes. Like, if you own a four-wheeler, if you own a boat, if you own a trailer that you haul your boat on, if anything that you own that they know about, and then to give you the greatest middle finger of all time, they send it to you in December. Like, you got to pay them. You got a month to pay in
At
the
Christmas
month of
time.
December.
Yeah.
At
Mhm.
Christmas time, like
They
when
need
we've
their
all just
money too.
taking
Yeah.
the financial beating, right? So just to make sure before you start to do your taxes in January, they want to kick you real hard in December. So I took off for Florida for 5 days and had my taxes in an envelope on my desk, ready to be sent in, and forgot. Okay, shame on me. I get back. I put them in the mailbox at the Fayette post office, which is a pitching wedge shot away from the courthouse. Somehow they sat there for 5 days before they made it over to the courthouse, but they made it. And I was late. January 7th, my taxes got in. My late fee was $166.85. So
You learn
So
your
We
lesson.
know.
on my what is this for line, I put more taxes. And when I was in there, I was like, this is my late fee? Like, am I covering my January 25 taxes, or is this just an assessment because I went into January? And she's like, it's just an assessment. I was like, okay, how did this number, this poor lady, right? Like, how did this number come to be? How did it become $166? She's like, I don't know. So then the collector actually comes out and says, well, it's 9% of the total. I was like, because I was 2 days late, you're charging me 9% of the total for the 1988 Starcraft boat that I own, that my grandfather paid off in 1988, you know, for my vehicles, for a flatbed trailer, for an enclosed trailer. Like, it's just infuriating. So this takes me back to wanting to do my documentary. So if anybody is seriously listening, Hollywood Steve, I'm sending up the sign. I'm sending up the Hollywood signal for Hollywood Steve. Like, we should do a documentary on taxes for a year. Like, follow one person. I volunteer for 1 year and just figure out exactly how much they take from you. And then drive yourself insane trying to figure out where it goes. Like,
I
where
don't
does
think
it
I
go?
want to know. I don't
Like,
want to know.
I mean, it goes all over the world.
Something needs to
for
be
sure.
done.
Right. So, like, if I paid that $166 and now Fayette, Howard County could afford to pay teachers enough to have my children go to school 5 days a week, I'd feel a little bit better about it. But my kids can't even go to school 5 days a week in this county. And they try to sell that shit as if it's some kind of advancement. Like, I don't think it is.
Like-
I think kids in Japan are going to school 6 days a week, and my kids are going to school 4 days a week. And that says a lot about where we're headed as a country.
Well, let's not talk common sense and logic here. You're confusing that with taxes. They're not supposed to make sense. They're supposed to be super confusing and give you a headache. I learned the hard way. I was so anti personal property tax coming from Oregon, like I refused to pay it, and then I'd have to go get my tags. And every 2 years, it was like a $1,500 payment to get everything legal again. And this is the first, over the holidays, this is the first year, December, I paid them all. And then come January, I took my old Yukon off. I put the Dodge on. I put our new little trailer on. I was like, you beat me into submission, Missouri. I'm done paying all the fees because they do cap out, but it is still a pretty penny that you'll pay in late fees if you refuse to pay them every single year.
I
They
mean,
get you.
it just, I can't fathom it. Like, how did they even figure out how to pass this shit? Like, okay, I got an idea. Let's hire a guy for $100 a day. We're going to take 30% of that. So now he's down to 70. And then whatever he buys, we're going to tax him at the store, another 10% when he buys it. Okay, so now he's down to $63. And then if he owns that, we can't let him just get away with owning it. We got to tax him for owning it. So now
Every
for the rest of
year.
your life, you got to pay taxes
Yeah.
for as long as you're alive.
Hey.
On that thing, the money that you used to buy it has already been taxed twice, and now you're getting taxed again. But now you can't stop there.
Don't let
We can't
anybody
let them
inherit
just
it.
use it. Once we tax them to own it, we got to tax them to use it. So now they got to go get a license plate, and then let's go ahead and let the insurance lobby own the day. And now we got to force you to have insurance on it. Like, the
Well, here's a-
machine. We're in the
Here's
machine.
a wild idea for you. You're going to a place today
Mm.
that's going to be full of people that could change that. So why don't you go down there and give them that speech at the governor's ball instead of doing it to us?
Well, the lady in the taxes place said, she goes, well, it's a statue. And I go, yeah, for now, until we get the right people in place that eliminate that statue, so we won't have to pay this ridiculous tax anymore. And then we won't need the people that sit here and enforce it either, will we? And she just stared at me like,
She's like, I literally
I
work
could-
here. I just work here.
yeah, like, I'm hopeful that your job will no longer exist.
I can see Brandon at the governor's ball now, everyone sitting at their tables and him just
Just
grabbing
grabbing
a glass.
Mike and
Just grab the glass, go, bing, 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 bing. May I have your attention, please? And standing up and giving his big spiel about how they're all doing their jobs wrong and we're getting screwed in our
congratulations,
taxes.
Governor Kehoe, on your inauguration. I'm very happy for you. You got a minute to talk about taxes?
No,
Where's the
well,
microphone? I need a couple of minutes on the microphone.
I got something I want to talk to you about. It's called personal property robbery.
Maybe that will just be our podcast with them. Let's just talk personal property tax the whole time.
Personal
I'm sure you would
property
love that.
robbery. Oh,
Well, we can't let you get out of here, buddy, old pal, without the old mystery bait bucket. So, all random questions submitted by friends, family, fans of the podcast. You can even leave them in comments on our videos or on you can send us direct messages on the socials. And very rarely does it have anything to do with the outdoors, but it's a fun way to end the podcast. Well, I'll read the question, who it's from, and we'll all go around and answer it. Ooh, this one comes from Susan Packer. She wants to know, do you have any recommendations for good books, podcasts, or even TV shows? Well, I mean, I started the podcast talking about American Primeval. That's pretty intense. It's a good series, but ultra violent and a little bit of history.
how many episodes were on that?
I think 6 or 7.
Check it out. American Primeval.
But if I
Well,
had to pick,
Susan needs to give a little more context to what she's into. Like, if she's into like crocheting, I'm not gonna have much help for you on TV shows or stuff.
she's asking your opinion.
Is there any shows on how to reduce the amount of taxes you pay?
American Revolution.
Oh, I
Yeah.
did listen to. I mentioned it before on a couple of podcasts ago, but there was a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes, and that blew my mind about. Colton, have you heard about this? The Telepathy Tape podcast.
No.
It's becoming a documentary. That this podcast got so popular, they're shooting a documentary now. But it's this woman doing the scientific research on nonverbal autistic kids and them having telepathic powers, them being able to speak with their parents, like read their minds. And they're doing blind studies with random number generators, and it's wild on how so many get them correct. And as the podcast progresses, some of these cases get more and more extreme where you start questioning like consciousness. We all think that's in our brain, but is it? Is it just out there and we can tap into it? Because a lot of these kids too, usually when you're a nonverbal autistic child, you don't get taught arithmetic and science. You get taught colors and basic numbers, but they're finding out now that they're able to spell, that a lot of these kids know different languages and things that are well past what they've learned in school. And it's like, well, how are you learning this? And it's like they're kind of downloading it from what? The consciousness. And they speak to each other on this thing called the Hill through their minds. It's like 10 episodes. And each time I'm like, what is going on here? This is absolutely incredible. It makes you question a lot of things. So, Susan, that would be a good podcast to listen to.
I'm gonna take a stab here, and I hope Susan's in the workforce because I can't think of anything fun right now. I'm still so mad about the taxes, but since they're gonna
Pay them on time.
Since they're gonna continue to take your money, you got to make more of it so you can give them more of it. And a great way to make more of it is to follow the principles of a book called Traction. So I've given this book to my entire leadership team. It's amazing how many people know about it when I start talking about it. So hopefully your forever fiance has been at home reading the book. But
she's really been enjoying it. She's already been implementing things.
The premise of it is and I'm very guilty of this. Like, I'm very guilty of staying on track. I mean, I think it comes with kind of the definition of what I am, which is a visionary defined by the book Traction. You have visionaries, you have integrators, you have different types of people in different roles. So I'm an idea guy, and sometimes I'm on to the next idea before we're done implementing the last idea, but that's common of someone in a CEO role or my kind of role. So what this book does is it breaks everything down into 90-day periods, saying that psychologically, that's about how long our attention span is. We can focus on 90 days. So if you try to make like annual goals and, set them in January and come back to check on them in December, you're not really doing anybody justice. So with Traction, you set your quarterly rocks, and each person on the leadership team is going to have 3 to 7 rocks. Each person reporting to that person is going to have 1 to 3 rocks. So we've got 21 people. Let's say we have an average of 4 rocks per person. That's 84 things that, we're counting on being completed in this quarter. And that's aside from your day to day. That would be like Savannah saying, we're going to get an estimate on, finishing the trail around the building. I'm going to get the podcast episode 1 out for, whatever our rocks are. But then you come back and you review those rocks, and you can either eliminate them or move them forward. So it's an organization strategy around that. I'm excited about it. If you're into business and organization, it's a great way to go. Traction.
I'll have to check that one.
How about you, Colton?
Yeah. Of course, this podcast, everybody should be listening to this. I'm a big
Thank you for that.
yeah.
Appreciate
Well, of
it.
course, I'm very grateful. But anyway, I'm a big fan of the Bear Grease podcast with Clay Newcomb and This Country Life on the same feed with Brent Reeves both guys down in Arkansas. And I just enjoy their take on like American history and things that really make us who we are as a people in this country. Because, I'm finding out like this is 300 years of my family being on this continent, and so what is my identity? Because I don't self-identify as European or German or anything like that. I'm just American, but my roots don't run as deep as some people's do on this continent. So it kind of works through what it means to be an American on the Bear Grease feed. And then on This Country Life, it's just a fun story with a good message. And I just love his accent, his Southern accent. Man, growing up from north of the river in Missouri, I enjoy that. It's endearing and it's just an easy listen. But those would be my recommendations. So,
All right. Well, we got the final thought, the final cast of the pod.
I'm off to be the bell of the ball.
To bitch
Heading
about
off.
taxes with the governor.
Excuse me, Governor. Can I have a moment, sir?
Well, we won't keep you, Colton. I just want to say I appreciate our friendship. I'm really proud of what you've done in your career, and it's been cool to see you blossom through it and keep up the good work with a great organization. And thanks for taking the time on being podcast number 2 for us on the videos and being a little patient, trying to figure it out at the beginning. But thanks for hopping on here with us, man.
yeah, thank you guys for
Yeah,
having me. I appreciate you guys lifting up organizations like MHHF and giving us a platform to speak on.
I'm a life member of MHHF, and I would encourage everybody who cares about the next generation going hunting, especially here in Missouri, to join. Like maybe you don't have it in you, or maybe you don't have the opportunity to take a kid hunting. Well, your membership in this organization will directly affect taking a kid hunting. So like if that's where you want to know your money's going, join this organization, make a donation, send a kid out, send them hunting, maybe change their life forever.
Yep. Thank
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
you again.
Gear review coming up next. When I say that, it's right now. Brandon, you know what you're reviewing?
I got a really cool new hat. This is a Filson collab with Ducks Unlimited, which I think is pretty awesome. Everybody that knows me knows I'm a big Filson guy. So to see a conservation organization being supported by such an iconic brand, all wool, let's get down to what matters: lower taxes and more wool clothing. So
Oh.
if you don't know anything about Filson, it's as good as it gets. Check it out. But the Filson Ducks Unlimited collab, send a little money to a good conservation organization while keeping your head warm this winter.
And for mine, it's my fancy new webcam, Logitech. It is the Pro Web Camera ultra wide angle, and so far it's been great. I mean, I look fantastic on this thing compared to last week's. It's going to be night and day. But I spent a little bit of money. I got a fancy webcam, and I don't have to hold a microphone the whole time, I don't think. And it's got great picture. And if you're going to do anything like this, or even for Zoom meetings around the office, I mean, it was under $150. So worth the investments. Go get yourself a new fancy webcam.
I think we should do a survey. Like, we should do a poll and see if people like you like this, or if they like you yellow, holding a microphone in front of your face the whole time.
When I was chopping it all up for our reels and stuff, I was like, I'm going to get a webcam today. Like, I can't keep doing this. Enjoy the ball, buddy. Don't lose your glass slipper tonight.
I will not. All right. We'll see you down the trail.